Hey, this is Jack, back at the Devil's Den, finally. And I'm here with Miss Dwyer to talk about xenomorph biology and its, plausibility validity, if it's able to happen or what it would have to be made out of or, and other scientific things to prove that it would be capable of being real. So, first question is, Miss Dwyer, do you know what a xenomorph is?
Well, if I dissect the word xene, you're thinking foreign and morph body, so it's a foreign body, some type of alien form perhaps?
Yes, it's it's an alien species from the franchise Alien and Alien versus Predator. Technically, I guess that's an independent movie, not a franchise. But from Alien, it's an alien that's sort of like a parasite or symbiotic that basically, it's just an alien. We'll get into other details later. Did it stop recording? Sorry, I thought it stopped recording for a moment. Because the screen turned off. So it's an alien that usually infects the person. So I want to ask, is the human stomach able to grow a foreign body, say like a parasitic embryo, to grow a xenomorph or an alien? Can I show you on your computer what a xenomorph?
Sure.
So I'm going to show you a chest burster. That's what grows inside the body, kind of like a baby with a human.
Mm-hmm.
I also want speaking of species, that's a chest burster.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible for the human stomach to process, be able to have that grow inside them be able to grow inside? Okay, that's a bad.
Well, if you think of some of the organisms that currently exist in a human body, there are nematodes, there are worms, things that can grow in the intestines and survive in the stomach and do travel throughout the body. So, yes, there are currently organisms that can do that. There are also organisms that can live under the flesh, like botflies, and then burst out. So I wonder if that was the inspiration for the chest burster.
Well, actually, the inspiration for the chest burster is a little less appropriate than any school topic. And you think by looking at it, you'll probably know what I mean. But for a creature this size, what would it take for it to grow inside a human stomach within a few hours to a few days?
Well, that seems like an exceptional growth rate.
Jamel Williams, would you please come to the high school office?
Thanks.
Jamel Williams.
Thanks for interrupting my
to the high school
podcast.
office,
That's
please.
real nice of you. Yeah. If you haven't put it together already, I am currently recording in Miss Dwyer's chemistry classroom. So I could...
So could an organism grow in this highly acidic environment such as the stomach? Yes, there are things that do survive. They would have to have some type of a mucous membrane on the outside that would protect them from contact with the acid. Could it travel to other parts in the body again? Yes, there are organisms that currently do that.
So are you saying that maybe a xenomorph chest burster could possibly, instead of exiting through the chest like you usually do, it could maybe go back up the throat, and stomach, and possibly go out the mouth? Or would it
And
be
are
able
you
to fit?
familiar with some of those segmented worms that were caught that way in the early days of worms, where a doctor would put, say, a piece of beef and try to lure out the worms that were in there and
Seriously?
catch them? I know, it's
I saw it on
macabre.
TV once, but I never thought that was real.
No, and then they try to slowly twist it to get out the whole worm, and frequently they would
Wow.
break, and then parts of it would be left inside to replicate and continue growing. So, again, this is not unprecedented, and it has actually occurred. I would question what you said about the growth rate. While some things grow at highly accelerated rates, the growth you suggested, where it would go to this incredibly large size in a matter of days,
Yeah,
seems
it's the size of an arm, basically.
the size of an arm in a
Like a
couple days.
forearm.
There's no correlate, in something that would grow that fast currently.
What would it take for it to be able to do that?
It would have to have sufficient nutrition and incredible cellular division. That happens in infants, in stem cells and fetuses. They have incredible growth rates if you consider the starting material and how fast they double and triple and quintuple
Yeah,
their
and
size.
when a face hugger, which is a basically a hand with a penis, basically, pardon my language, but it's literally what it is, and a tail, that I accidentally, okay, so is that those wrap around and like impregnate the person by laying eggs, like kind of like a frog egg type deal, that kind of egg, for like hours at a time. So it could be that instead of like, trial and error, one might survive. Could it be possible that all the eggs combined with there's still a certain kind of cell, kind of like,
Where are the eggs laid?
into the stomach?
Oh, so it's
That
going-
has like a tube thing.
Gotcha.
That injects the eggs. Trying to be careful with my words
Again,
here.
it's really curious why the focus is on the stomach, that they should grow there. I guess because it's so interior and you're assuming they're protected.
Yeah, so they can do in either gender, so it's not gender specific probably,
Right.
I would have to say. And I don't know, this also brings me to another question though of, in the movies, the xenomorph usually can go from a chest burster to a full grown. There is no in between has been ever seen between chest burster and full grown within a matter from hours to a few days with little to no nutrients. As in the first Alien movie, they were on a spaceship, like a salvage ship with no access to nutrients, no food, proteins, vegetables, but they did have water. There were water in some places, like pipelines and stuff like that. So how could a creature, any form of animal, be able to survive like that or grow?
Or to even grow. You're
With that
asking a
exponential
question
rate.
of the conservation of matter, the elements that make it up. Where are they coming from?
Yeah.
So what you're
could-
describing, if it's an isolated system and there's no way to get these elements there, where would they come from? That seems counterintuitive. And yet, if you think that through, where does the stuff come from that makes up plants? It's the carbon dioxide and the hydrogen and the oxygen, the water in the air that come together in photosynthesis. So I wonder, would the particles that make this up, would it be possible for it to do something similar to photosynthesis, where it's taking things that are present that we can't see in the air and combining them to make the stuff that makes this up, whether it's a hydrocarbon or a silicate, a silicon-based life form. You think about that. It's right under carbon on the periodic table. So that seems plausible, except silicon is, heavier, of course, whereas carbon's in the air.
I don't think there's a specific weight on xenomorphs.
Right.
There is a specific height for, an average human-based xenomorph, which is also human-based. I'm going to get to another question in a little bit. If it's like 8 feet tall, primarily is a drone. It's kind of like a B system. There's drones, there's warriors, there's runners, and there are Praetorians and Queens. There's a bunch of other stuff, but those are basics. But for a drone, it's usually like 8 feet tall. So it could be really heavy for 8 feet tall. I don't know, because there's this square cubed law thing I've heard before, usually in a conversation about Godzilla and his size. So I don't know how heavy a silicon, if that could be possible.
Right, what are the limits to size? It seems more pragmatic with the silicon based a carbon, to have more structure
And speaking
there.
of material, it also gives me brings me to my next question. What could a xenomorph be made out of that can both hold acid that can burn through basically a whole planet of metal, like a whole station, but also be able to be pierced by bullets, cut, set on fire, stabbed, blown up by a laser, that's Predator, an Iwata, that's what they're called, their species, but, and so on and so forth, or even their own, like the outs, you know what I mean? Without being like a flabby stomach, it's
Right.
still like a bone. Like if you look at their skull and their kind of manticore-like, like a scorpion-like tail, but it's really just like a giant scythe at the end or a sickle at the end. and it's like just like a bare vertebrae. How could?
So what could it be made of?
Yeah, that's also a biological material.
Well, here on Earth, of course, most things are carbon-based. Carbon, as you know, on the periodic table, because it's got those 4 valence electrons, it readily bonds in 4 directions, so it makes it ideal for forming all these different substances. So while it could be made of carbon, that would account for things like the strength and where the material comes from. There's a lot of applications from carbon right now that we're creating these graphene sheets that are incredibly strong, nanotubes that are incredibly durable, and those are all made out of pure carbon. So some of those properties you describe, non-reactivity and strength, perhaps that's due to carbon. But I think it's important not to limit, in a thought experiment, don't limit what we're considering carbon just because that's how we know life here. If one were to consider something completely novel and new, though, you'd probably want something in the same area of the periodic table, like silicon. Or heck, why not take it up a step, like a germanium, something with a similar valence electron structure that would be readily available and bonded. Silicon, do you remember how silicon behaved when you put acid on it?
It didn't react, did it?
It's not as reactive as, say, the alkali metals or any of the transition metals,
Right.
things that you normally see, the irons and so that would confer some resistance while still maintaining some of the same characteristics of carbon. So that's an attractive, plausible alternative, and it would give it that shiny
And
sheen
how
that you're showing me in this picture.
Yeah, and I'm showing her a picture of a xenomorph right now, which also brings me to another question of, how do you think a xenomorph could have metal teeth?
Well, is it metal or metalloid?
I don't know. It's,
So perhaps, yeah.
yeah. And what about the inner mouth? It doesn't have a tongue. It has a smaller mouth within its mouth. If you see right here, that can extend like out to, I don't know, the farthest I've seen is maybe about a foot, half a foot. Maybe I'm just estimating. That's for like a drone or a warrior. A queen, they can go really far because they are huge, which I'm going to get to later, maybe. How would that work? Would that be just an extension of the throat? And how would it be able to hold teeth? And
Yeah,
stuff
that's a
like
good
that?
question. And while it may produce an interesting dramatic effect, I wonder how efficient that is to have a part of that protruding out, to collect a food source. It seems to be very easily, it could be damaged. So I don't
And
know.
as it seems, they don't seem to really eat either, so it could just be a way to... There was a theory that is used to disable a person by damaging a part of the brain. Like a theory where I'm just conveying what I heard about how if you can, damage... As long as one half of the brain is still functional, you can still remain alive. You just might be like brain dead or something. So there's a theory that they may be able... only have that inner mouth so they can damage the brain, and then, so they're just laying there
Gotcha.
so that they can be harvested, like taken to the hive and harvested.
To incubate them. Well, so how does this mouthpiece coming out affect the brain? It goes into the victim?
It's basically like a knife or like a it's actually more like a hammer going into your head. If you've seen, like, say, Mortal Kombat X or just movies or in the games like Predator versus Alien, it just hammers in, it just comes out the mouth and just puts a hole in the skull. Sometimes it goes all the way through, though. Sometimes. And also, side note, a chestburster they can actually jump with such force that it can actually go through a whole, like a
Through a whole
full-grown
person?
man. Not only through the chest, but it went in Alien Resurrection. It went through a man, like all his
Sure.
clothes, his spine, like right out his chest from another guy
Holding him, and it went
Yeah, it was
through
the
the-
antagonist kind of because he was a jerk. He was trying to kill them all and stuff. So, but the other guy was, this innocent, nerdy guy with glasses that got face hugged. This dude came out and he wasn't even supposed to be there. He was kidnapped for xenomorph experimentation. He held him while the chestburster was coming out, and it went through both of them. So I just thought it was a cool side note.
So what you posited here about the mouthpiece
The inner
taking
mouth.
out part of the brain. Again, there are records through history of this happening to people. Phineas Gage was one of the earliest examples. He was working on a rail yard in the 1800s, and they would explode their way through, and this rod went straight through his brain, a whole rod through, and he survived. And it offered an interesting study into, okay, if we take out this whole part of the brain, can a person live through it? I know I've seen that rod over at the Harvard Museum, so it's not fantastical. It did actually happen. He was examined by many medical people. The way you've described it, though, like a hammer, seems very random. I would expect anything of superior intelligence to understand the brain enough to remove exactly the parts you
Well,
want.
I meant like it leaves a hole like you would think a hammer would.
Okay.
Because it's large, God, that was the impact thing. But it is used with precision. Like, they even use it to use controls. Because they actually are very highly intelligent. They're problem solving. Basically, Velociraptor on steroids with a stinger. It's like but they press buttons with it, which
Okay.
is strange because they have hands with thumbs on both sides. Like a human, like hands.
Yes.
Except it's like if you did the Spock thing, we come in peace, where two fingers are connected.
So why use that for things that would
Yeah,
be
when
more
you
readily
have
done?
perfectly working fingers that you
Right.
can use to climb on ceilings, walls, and all of that. It's also a weird thing that they almost never I almost never see them close their mouths either, which is weird. But yeah, usually it's like they're snarling or something like all the time. I don't think I've ever seen one close its mouth. Either that or I just didn't pay attention
Or
enough.
it's for dramatic effect again, because it gives it
Yeah.
a leering imposition,
They are very intelligent. And also, based on their intelligence, is also brings me to another question about how they take on attributes of their host, of the host body. Say like a drone that's a human-based xenomorph. Or if you look at this Predalien, have you seen Predator?
I have not.
Okay, so it takes on attributes of the species of a predator or Iwata, where it has that the things that spread out because a predator mouth is like kind of skin spread out, and it has the dreadlocks. It has the dreads of predators, which also bears the question: are why are they born with dreads, and what their hair is made out of to make them born with dreads? And what would it question about how they would do that?
How they
Yeah.
would assume the characteristics of
Yeah, and-
this.
Yeah, and they differ. Say, like, the runner or dog alien from Alien 3, which ironically has the cubed sign on it, which is not 3 because the cube or 6. You're usually seeing 6 or 4, but it's 3. It comes out as a chest burster as straight up just full body. It isn't the little worm thing, it's a full body. It runs, so it can take on attributes of its host. I was wondering how a life form could do that.
Well, if it's able, assuming that this is a DNA-based organism, which it may not be, but we know that there are microbes, there are things that can change DNA. We used to think of DNA as being fixed and never changed, and we now know that there are factors that can alter. So whatever its method of, whether it's DNA or something else that codes for its structure, it would have to be recoding it somehow. That's interesting.
Yeah, I also want to.
And how do you stop then? My question is, okay, so if this is altering it, how does it stop and go back to what it wants, or continue? How are there limits to that?
Say stay as a xenomorph, but still.
But not completely turn into this other creature, if you're saying it adopts some of their
Yeah,
characteristics.
there is a theory that they were able to survive in the stomach, that they took on some DNA of it so they could trick the body into thinking it belongs there.
Again, I'm wondering, why does it have DNA? Just that's what we're familiar with here on our planet.
Yeah,
but-
it is a biological creature, so it
Right.
would make sense that it has DNA. This
Or
picture I'm showing
can we
you-
think outside of the box and think there might be some other method of, oh, that's interesting.
What I'm showing you right now, this is a facehugger egg. This is what a queen lays. A queen xenomorph lays, and I'm going to get to different hierarchies and stuff in a little bit. I wanted to ask, because I noticed that these things are very plant-like, but also very, very thick. They open up, they sense, they can kind of sense when somebody is near, a host is near. And as it's known for both xenomorphs and eggs and other things, they have the capability of longevity or immortality, as in not killing, but they can live forever if they, if you drop a piano on a face hugger, it's gonna die, but it still can live indefinitely. It can sleep till the end of time. But, I was wondering how that would be possible.
Well, there are organisms that have lived in desert areas and places completely deprived of air or water, and you would think that they wouldn't be able to survive, but they have been able to
Yeah.
regenerate
Like
when...
in the first Alien movie, these guys were the xenomorphs. There was a whole nest and stuff. They were there on a planet with no atmosphere. Like they had to put the company or Wayland Industries, or was it Wayland Industries, actually had to put these huge atmosphere, basically an atmosphere generator that created the atmosphere, which is massive pyramids. They're huge, or buildings, not pyramids. I'm thinking pyramids for some reason. So they're able to basically exist in the vacuum of space, or with a planet without an
Right.
atmosphere for indefinitely.
For extended periods of time. Well, if you think, again, of examples that currently exist in the animal and plant kingdom here, as I stated, there are plants and animals that have regenerated after a great deal of time. Even look at bears right now that go into hibernation. We don't totally understand how does it produce these chemicals in the bloodstream that cause it to slow its respiration, that cause it to slow everything. If we understood that completely, we could apply it to humans and better consider our extended voyages, right? It would be better for us on these extended voyages. So we don't have a total understanding of how that works on our own planet yet, more or less. How might we hypothesize that it would work toward this alien life form?
Yeah, and how could, in Alien Resurrection, again, I know, I'm sorry to bring this up for Alien fans, it's considered a bad movie. Same thing with Alien 3 for some people, but there was a scene showing xenomorphs swimming underwater, and they could breathe underwater, yet they don't have any gills. They
Yeah.
have a lot of tubes, and they're basically super anorexic, because you can see
Yes.
they both have, which is strange, that they have both an exoskeleton and like a regular skeleton, because you can see that they clearly have ribs,
Yes.
but there's clearly skin on there and stuff, like right here. And they have these weird shoulder tube things, like they have safety floaties on them or something, or like they have inner tubes on their shoulders, but they don't have any gills. So how could a creature breathe underwater without gills?
It does not seem plausible, does it?
Could it have like something in the throat, like through the mouth? Could there be a way to process it through the mouth? Say, because maybe that's what the second mouth is for.
Think about it in terms of volume. There's very little oxygen dissolved in the water, and a fish or another life form has to be able to strain through all that water to get out what it needs. How would it do that without the surface area? That does not seem practical.
Yeah,
That's
and they
what-
can even survive in space for a short time, is from my understanding. I think. I'm not saying that for sure.
But that's the whole purpose of gills, is to provide plenty of surface area for that exchange. If that doesn't
It could
exist,
be like that.
there are mammals, of course, that it can extend for long periods of time underwater without surfacing.
And that could also be what these tubes are. Maybe these tubes on the side of the head may not even be tubes. They could just be gills that just are really thick, maybe. Maybe that's what those are. I always thought it was strange. And I was wondering what do you think these spikes on their back are for? I've seen these, that's in every form
These?
of xenomorph. Yeah, the 4 spikes in the back. There's 4, you can't see the other one. What that could be for? I mean...
Yeah, because everything...
These guys they use the bare minimum. Like, that's why they look anorexic. They take the bare minimum of nutrients that they needed to grow, and they always take the bare minimum of everything, so just for survival. They
Right.
only do things for survival. They don't even open up their face hugger eggs unless there's somebody, a possible host near.
So it doesn't expend energy unless it's not necessary. That
Exactly,
seems a
so-
prudent evolutionary feature.
Everything on them has a purpose. Absolutely everything. That's what they're designed at. Well, biologically designed as. So what would be the point of these?
So tell me, what do you think they're for?
I don't know. For a second, I thought maybe they could be like an oxygen holder or something, but then that doesn't make sense.
A
'cause of-
storage?
Yeah, but it could just... It doesn't make sense to be decorative because, one, they have a hive mind and they asexually sort of asexually
Mm-hmm.
reproduce, and so it couldn't be, you know, attracting mate.
Well, because that's the
Hey,
first
hey,
thing
look
that
at
you
me.
think. Most animals, when they have really visual characteristics like that, it's done for purposes of reproduction.
And it wouldn't make sense for them to be like fins because they're tubes, and they're varying from shape and size, and there's, you know, and the position they're in wouldn't make sense for fins because they're not primarily water creatures. I don't think they
Right.
might be. It would explain why they're able to get.
Could it be a feature that's left over from something that was useful in previous forms? Those are called vestigial features, things like, you know, your tailbone, you don't
Yeah, that-
need. So is that a remnant of a previous life form
Yeah,
that
it
is left
could-
over here?
yeah.
Is it meant to be
Maybe it came from-
intimidational to make it appear more powerful? I mean, think of like certain reptiles that put out these big frilly collars to make themselves look fierce. So is it done for that reason, to be intimidating? Or perhaps, again, I'm trying to think of different things, like from reptiles to fish to other organisms. If you look at the dinosaur kingdom, think of things like the dinosaurs that have the large plates on the back.
Like
And
a
well-
stegosaurus?
Correct. So we may not know exactly why they were there, but it's been hypothesized lately when you look at the bone structure in those plates on the back and when you look at the blood flow there, that there was actually a great deal of blood flow happening. So some scientists recently have hypothesized that they were some type of thermal
Yeah, like a
regulation.
Dimetrodon.
Perhaps. I mean, I don't know. Does that have something to do with
I don't know. It wouldn't. I don't know. To me,
regulation of some facet? I'm not sure.
yeah, it could be a. Maybe that's their secret to longevity. I don't know. Maybe that's what it. I have no idea.
You know, do camels use humps
Like
for
a s-
storage? Is it a storage? Is
Yeah.
it a toxin removal and putting in someplace outside of the body instead of letting it circulate throughout? I mean,
maybe
there's-
since it doesn't have like a tongue or anything, I don't really know where saliva comes from, but they have a whole lot of saliva. Maybe that's where it comes from. Maybe the saliva isn't saliva; it's something else that's used to like, I don't know, a detection thing or something.
Interesting. Well, in humans, we have our glands here that produce it, but that's an interesting hypothesis that if that was storing it,
Yeah,
that
sometimes
would
it's saliva,
explain-
or some xenomorphs can. I think all of them can spit acid. But there's the spitters that specifically have, you know, they spit really far, and there's a lot of it. And maybe that's what that's for, is a defense mechanism. And their blood,
Interesting idea.
and their blood keeps circulating post mortem as another defense mechanism.
Really?
That's what I heard too. Yeah, I heard that from like a really big fan who is a reliable source.
Uh-huh.
I know because I know him. That their blood actually continues to circulate without a heart pumping it. It continues to circulate, and if you manage to cut into it, it kind of spurts
can
out.
still-
It pours out on you, so you can't dissect it and find out weaknesses and stuff.
Again, plenty of examples in the plant and animal kingdom of things that maintain their toxic qualities post-mortem.
And you know,
That's not
actually, I never
unprecedented.
asked this before, but why acid blood? Why do you think they would have acid for blood?
Because of the corrosive nature, you would think. Well, that's true.
I mean, it does have many tools. Like, it's been shown that they can release an imprisoned queen. They can escape places with it by cutting themselves, or that's a nice thought right there. Yeah, cut yourself so you can escape from prison. No, you know, or by killing another xenomorph, so then it bleeds everywhere, makes a hole big enough for them to crawl through. You know, and for a weapon, you know, spitters. But I don't see a practical use for it besides that, because those seems to be improvised. Like, it took intelligence to do that. So what would be a biological purpose for that?
For having acid blood.
Very corrosive acid is.
Right, so we have a strong acid, but you also said it's spitting saliva that's acid, so it's both?
It spits acid kind of like a king cobra would spit venom.
So is this a different acid or the same type?
No,
that
it's
is-
all the same kind of acid. This very highly corrosive acid. You know, it's in its blood. You know, but it can also spit like it's spitting blood. I'm assuming.
Well,
I don't know.
That's what I'm asking. Is it distinguished? Because your saliva is not the same thing as your blood. It's not the same
Right.
thing as
Yeah,
as
it's-
other fluids in your body. But so I'm not clear. Is that the same fluid used for both in this creature, or you're not sure?
I'm not sure. You know, but that just did make me think of something like of why they don't have any sort of exit for excess nutrients. Maybe that's what the saliva is. And why it looks so weird and thick and white and stuff sometimes. You know?
So perhaps it's more efficient in utilizing different things because we as humans need all these micronutrients. But
Yeah, and they may use their saliva to get rid of all the stuff they don't need.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's what the saliva's for. But I still wonder about the acid for blood. I get, like, for theatrical reasons, sort of. I don't understand why they thought, oh, this guy, this thing has no eyes, bunch of teeth, a mouth inside a mouth, and a giant tail with a knife on the end of it. Let's give it acid for blood.
Because
that doesn't
people-
make sense.
yes,
like,
well-
where does somebody think that up?
I
Like,
think-
oh yeah, this is an alien velociraptor. Let's give it acid
let's make
blood.
it worse.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
I think it's because of the public perception. When they hear the word acid, they necessarily think that it's something
Yeah,
harmful.
but why put it in that? Like, what? I get, acid, aliens. It could just be how I was raised, but I kind of would associate that more with an alien extraterrestrial than a mystical, like, or a hellspawn like Jason Voorhees or Scorpion. You wouldn't think they have acid for blood. You'd think they'd have, like, black blood or something.
Okay.
Because demons. And how, also, predators, I want to dip into predators a little bit. That sounds weird. But it seems that they have normal human blood. It's just like human blood, except it's green, and sometimes it glows.
Well, maybe it
What
has
could it
some
be made
type
out
of.
of?
If green, remember our flame tests? What burns greenish color?
Isn't it copper or
Yeah,
something?
copper. So maybe
So
there's
copper
some type
blood.
of copper.
Just like how we have iron in our blood.
Correct.
It could be a copper
Perhaps
rich
a copper
blood.
based. Well, yeah.
Copper rich blood.
Why not? I mean, there are areas on Earth that are more copper rich. So if wherever this organism first appeared was copper rich, it would be feasible that it was in their blood.
Got a predator, get free pennies.
Oh my. Not anymore, remember? Not much copper in a US penny anymore.
Oh yeah, it's mostly like zinc, I think. It's weird. Yeah, but then they go back to copper if they just start gutting the super predators that have been hunting. I might get into that later if you want to talk about it. But let's talk. I promised I would do this about the hierarchies and the hive minds of the aliens, the xenomorphs. So there's the lowest is like face hugger that creates. Then there's like a drone, runners, drones. They do drone things. They harvest people. Runners. What I've seen, they protect a queen. Say if the queen dies, they take a queen face hugger. They protect it. Stuff like that, or they're just runners, run through. That's the only thing I've seen them is protecting a queen face
Okay.
hugger or a queen chest burster that's still inside somebody. Like that extra guard you take in with the princess, the protector if the castle's burning down and they're being raided, kind of thing.
So like a social order with
Like a guard.
ants or
Like
yes,
a guard that
really.
could pick up the baby, pick up the chest burster and run.
Okay.
You run with it. Run with it. Then there's the warriors. Now, there's something interesting about warriors and Praetorians I'm going to get to in a second as soon as I'm done listing these. There's warriors. Then there's, probably just skipped a whole bunch right here, but then there's Praetorians and there's queens. Those are the ones I know personally. We could probably look on Xenopedia or something and find a whole bunch of different ones, but those are like the main ones that I have seen personally. Well, then there's also Predalien. Predalien is also very interesting as well, for a reason I'll say later. So there's this interesting thing about. Okay, actually, get to that. First, let's talk about the hive mind. Oh wait, queen. Did I say queen? A queen or an empress. Then there's the pure queen mother. She's the top dog of the top dogs. Her mind is so advanced. It's like a level 26 intellect, not literally.
Yeah.
Like, she can control everybody. You don't have a choice. You listen to her.
Okay, so they range from the lowly drones and the runners up to the queen, up to this
Yeah.
super queen.
And then there's the Praetorians, which are the royal guard,
Okay.
which can be evolved from a Praetorian can also turn into a queen, and a warrior can become a Praetorian, and a Praetorian can become a queen. I don't remember because I didn't really read the comics, because there's like a gajillion comics, and there's also from before my time, but I don't think the pure queen mother has ever died. I'm pretty sure she hasn't died, so nobody's ever seen a queen become a pure queen mother. plus a pure queen. There is a second pure queen mother, but it's not a pure queen mother.
But how did
It-
she get to be pure queen mother?
I have no idea. I think it was just that way.
I
The
think
way
that-
I would think of it is probably the original xenomorph, but then the origin of the xenomorphs is actually, it's not there. They don't know, and it's coming up in the next Alien Covenant. The new movie coming out this year is going to be the origin of the xenomorphs, so can't be that. So I don't know.
So these are all forms of the same organism that you're describing in this hierarchy.
Yeah, the same species.
Okay, so just like ants, where you have the workers and the queen, and
Yeah.
so how do they differentiate? How does somebody get to be a queen there?
I have no idea. I still have no idea.
They feed them a different food. They get this royal jelly that is fed just to the queen, and so then she grows differently than those who are going to be who creating other, being used for reproduction, and that's going to be different than the ones that are used as farmers. So in an ant colony, that's how they distinguish. But the question then is, how do they choose this ant to be the queen and this one? We don't totally understand the chemical cues that
Yeah, and there's
designate
also the fact that they are born, like there's a queen facehugger. If you look on there, they're like, they look different, they're sharper.
them.
Like,
So they are born different. Okay.
yeah, they are born different, so it would be a facehugger.
But that suggests too, then that's determined
Even the facehugger is different.
prior to birth. At somehow some cue is made there that says this one will grow up to be a pure queen mother and this one will grow up to be her guard. Like there's got to be some kind of a cue that if they're starting from the same genetic material.
Yeah, and it's also known that Praetorians are actually, I don't know about the pure queen mother, but I know besides her, the Praetorians are actually the most pure xenomorphs. They are pure xenomorph, no matter what host body it is. If it's a xenomorph, if it's a facehugger Praetorian facehugger, it comes out as a pure xenomorph every time. They're all exactly the same, no difference. No matter what the species, how old it is, where it came from, it's always the same. It's a pure xenomorph. I don't know why I said that. I was just wanted to put that in. It's so sometimes there's like, it could. Unlike other species, it doesn't differentiate. There's also the thing I wanted to mention too about the hive mind. They have a telepathic way of commanding, and it's not pheromones. It's not like ants or bees. It's actual like telepathy. How would that work between the species?
Is there anything comparable right now in the animal kingdom that you know of here on our planet?
No.
I mean, reading people's minds and communicating without some
Is there-
physical means
maybe
of doing
it's
it.
a-
And
could it
yet,
be-
let's, do the thought experiment. Again, insects release pheromones or chemicals that signal, hey, there's food here. Hey, I'm ready for mating. Hey, so could they be releasing some kind of chemical that is received and processed by the other
Yeah,
organism
but
and
it'd
they
be,
communicate that
from
way?
my understanding, it could be off-world too. You can give a command from the other side of the world, off-world.
Okay,
things
well then
like
can
that.
it be done perhaps some IT type way?
What's
Can we
IT?
not, IT, information technology, computers, some kind of signal?
They have no technology.
They have no technology.
No, they're animals.
Could something
they
like
bare
that-
minimum. They
Yeah.
hijack ships. They don't even drive. They just get on it, harvest. They just do what they need to survive. So they don't have technology.
Okay,
And maybe it could be like some type of sound that nobody could hear, but then some kind of frequency that can go through space, maybe.
right, and well, think of the speed of sound too, if they're sending this across a planet. Is that feasible, that it could travel fast enough and not dissipate? I mean, there's gotta be,
Yeah.
Jackie,
So-
you've thought this out.
I think that's kind of what I do. I like coming up with theories, ideas, comparisons. Fight who statistic things. I've been doing that since I moved to St. Louis. Actually, since I moved to Maplewood Richmond Heights, I've been doing that for stuff. So I usually, even if I don't, sometimes my best work or things I put in, theories and stuff like that, are explanations that are legitimate if you just use basic logic, deduction, Sherlock Holmes things. They're usually when it's on the spot. That's the only thing I can do on the spot for
Right.
real. It's literally the only thing I can do on the spot really well, and my best stuff comes from it.
So, I'm gonna give you some homework, because you keep talking about your theories, and I think you mean your hypotheses.
Hypotheses.
right? Because theories have evidence and hypotheses are, and you're throwing out some very interesting hypotheses. They're not wild guesses. They're things that you've thought and reasoned through, and they're very interesting.
There's also something weird about how there are different genders. Why would there be different genders? Like, all warriors, technically, they're warrioresses because they're all female, which is why they're able to turn Praetorian, and then Praetorian can turn into a queen because they're female inherently. Why have a different gender, a different sex, not gender, different sex or, between species if they cannot procreate with each other?
That
Or maybe they can.
Right.
Could they, maybe as a backup.
As a backup?
Yeah, a backup way of procreation.
Oh, okay, got it. There are certainly examples here on Earth of organisms that can go from one sex to another.
Yeah, because they can think independently, because they are highly intelligent. They can think on their own. Like, if you look at the Alien versus Predator, where the Alien campaign, because there's a campaign for humans, predators, and aliens. The Alien one is my favorite. You're number 6. That's your name because you got a 6 branded into your, basically into your face. Like, I'm pointing to, like, right between my nose, kind of in the arch between my eyebrows. You get a 6 branded right there. That's gotta hurt, first of all.
Yeah.
But even though it could still, like, think independently, like, when it was born, when number 6 was born, it knew it was in a tube to be, like, captured. So it actually went back into the chest of its host and then went out through the mouth, which is why it went through the experiments and stuff instead of being killed. Because Wayland thought it was, special, it was like his favorite, because it was really intelligent. So they do have independent thinking, and I forgot where I was going with this. What were we just talking about?
Oh, you've been filling me in on all the details of how this, that they're very simple, that they take over everything, and that there's no IT.
Like physically, they are the bare minimum, but mentally, they're really high up. They go above and beyond with their intelligence, thinking, even, telepathy, and some way of communicating without. They can communicate verbally as well, usually with hissing and growls and stuff, but it seems to be complicated. So my theory about that may be different variations of sound that are so close together that we can't even tell the difference. Maybe how they communicate. So a hiss could be like 3 years of conversation. Not literally, it can be like a long conversation right there. So small differentiations in pitch and volume and stuff that we don't even notice for verbal command, but then, say if there isn't a queen or everybody's the same, same level in the hierarchy. So they can't communicate with each other because, the higher up you are, the more stronger you can command, the more you can command, like, the stronger your mind is. You're born, or if you evolve into that. I don't know about, drones and stuff, but I know warriors, they can evolve, their mind gets stronger and stuff, Yeah. So it's really weird. They're very, very contradicting,
And of course, you're analyzing a fictional creature, so did the authors really think this through, whoever created them?
Yeah, I like explaining things that aren't real, explaining if they were real, which is hence the creation of this video, of this episode.
So hypothesizing what...
Yeah, I like connecting things with reality, making the connections, like things like how the Lernian Hydra, cut off one head, 2 or 3 more come back, is actually Hercules. It's his aunt. Their aunt. They're related. Like she's Zeus's cousin. Like you think the Lernian Hydra is this super badass giant multi-headed snake that's immortal. But she got her tail kicked by her nephew and her nephew's nephew. So it's really funny to me, stuff like that. Like I connected with reality, make the connections like, hey, this is technically they're this, like technically, they're related or technically, and then comparison, making connection between reality and fiction, how it would work in reality. Putting logic to the fiction. I like doing it.
So who's created the fiction? Is this the product of a particular author or a group?
Film.
Is it a whole group that
It
wrote?
originally came from the Alien film.
And-
So it was whoever designed that. There was no book origin or anything.
Right.
The film was the origin. So whoever designed the story
Mm-hmm.
and stuff, that's where it originally came from. The producers, script writers, all of that. Even the people who designed the actual Xenomorph animatronic, it's probably some CGI, I would suspect.
Mm-hmm.
If they had that then, I don't know the origin of CGI. You know?
It was in its infancy.
Yeah,
Alien came
even
out,
the
what,
metal
80?
teeth, even
Yeah.
the metallic teeth were I'm pretty sure they were just metal. You know, there's metal they didn't paint over or anything. They thought, oh, this will look scarier, so let's just leave it as it is. And also, I'm recording this with my phone, so it keeps turning off. I am hoping to God, or sorry, Pure Queen Mother. I'm hoping to the Pure Queen Mother that it still records every time it turns off.
Otherwise you're gonna have this bit piece conversation. No, I should think it's still.
Yeah, because it shows like it's still recording. It didn't like stop, so.
But we are going on 4. I will need to wrap it up soon. Any final thoughts or questions?
Yeah, how do you think they are able to evolve and stuff? Like, Praetorians, those are huge. You know, a warrior is like maybe 8, between 8 and 10 feet tall. But then a Praetorian is like huge. It's like dinosaur size.
Okay.
You know, that's like a T-Rex, basically. You know?
Although T-Rex is tiny compared to some other dinosaurs. Do they actually-
So that's still massive, though. That's like a
Yes.
50-foot span.
Yes.
From what I know, T-Rexes actually grow even more as they age, kind of like a snake does, except without molting. You know, like how they would be able to do that, like massive, and then the crest changes and stuff. You know, and even with all of that, the exponential growth rate at all, wouldn't that be like really painful? So that would mean they have a really large pain tolerance, wouldn't they?
You're assuming they have nerve endings or something that senses pain.
It's true. I mean, you would want to sense pain there, you know, so you know that something's happening to you.
That's right. That's why it's there. It's for your protection.
So it would make sense that they have it because they're all about survival. So it would make sense.
Wouldn't it be easier to survive though if you didn't feel pain and you could just fight?
Yeah,
through
but then
it?
you wouldn't know when something happens to you. So then you can have your leg cut off and you
Uh-huh.
don't know it happened. So then you could bleed to death because you didn't know your leg got cut off. So you wouldn't know to cauterize the wound or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also the thing. I also want to bring up that a queen has this huge womb thing that sticks out of their body. You know, it's massive. It's like twice the size of their body, maybe the size of their body. You know, but they can detach it. So, but they can also. I think they can grow it back. It would make sense. You know. So how long do you think that would take
They detach a womb.
so that they can walk around and attack and hunt and escape?
That's a clever mechanism.
Yeah, you can rip off your womb. That's
There's been a few times in pregnancies I would have enjoyed that. Hey, just give me a break for a day.
yeah, because it's like an external womb, sort
Right.
of.
So how
Because
does
they drop the eggs into the womb thing, and then those spurt it out or whatever, kind of like an ant or something.
So how does it continue to get nourishment if it's not attached? I guess again the question of
Well, no, not the womb that's left behind. How would they grow a new one? Or yeah, and could the eggs still be alive in there and be able to? You know, would those still be usable if if a queen had no other choice? You know, like how would that work? How would it? And how long do you think it would grow? Because a queen is massive, right? That's like at least like 20. That's like a 20-foot womb right there. So how long do you think that would take to grow back, even with their exponential growth
yeah,
rate?
you're talking about these exponential growth rates that are crazy and unprecedented. So,
Even then, what do you think? You know, what do you think?
well, it would replicate at the same rate as the rest of the things, that fast rate that you talked about, right? Whatever their mechanism is for getting their
It's
energy.
basically having a stomach that produces babies. You know, it's like a thin membrane kind of skin thing. You know, it's like, you could probably eat it the same way you eat a liver if it weren't for acid blood. You know? I'm sorry. Is that too weird to talk about how a queen
No.
can rip off her womb and how long do you think it grows back?
Again, it's a fantastic thought experiment to think about what made a person think of this concept to begin with and how could it be physiologically possible. So I'm looking at it simply from a survival of this thing was removed. There's a reason we have a fetus attached to us and we don't lay eggs and leave them alone. When we lay eggs and leave them alone, they get their nutrients from the environment. When we keep a creature in us and grow it, as in a pregnancy, it's so it can have this constant infusion of nutrients from the parent. So if this creature could
of
remove
both.
it, yeah, it's kind of in between, isn't
It is both because it lays eggs, but then it doesn't give birth to a xenomorph. It gives birth to a face hugger, which then impregnates somebody. Also, xenomorphs proving that oral sex can get you pregnant since 1979. I actually should have ended with that. But
Maybe you
still,
did.
but it can also impregnate so it can grow like a human or mammalian child can.
Right.
So it does both at the same time while also having a third thing because it has a womb on the outside of its body just hanging there. You know?
Jack, it's been a pleasure.
And
You've
it
raised
moves.
some great questions and introduced me to some amazing beasts, fantastic beasts, right?
Yep. Alien edition. Much more horrible. Yep.
So thanks.
Think about it. They're all about rape, survival, and murder. That's their whole life.
it's
Rape and
important.
murder. They don't even eat what they kill. Sometimes they kill it because they have no other choice. Either harvest or kill it. Yeah. But thanks for listening in. And thank you, Ms. Dwyer, for coming on my podcast, agreeing to this.
Oh,
And-
absolutely. Thank
And
you.
the next episode will be with Mr. Welker as I talk about the psychology of Jason Voorhees and how, his psychology and what Mr. Welker thinks, because I don't have access to a professional psychiatrist.
Interesting.
So, see you next time.